were the best in your sport, then they gave you a jacket and all that, and they honor you into being a Springbok in your sport. So it's a big to-do for South Africans. But the biggest Springbok right now is obviously mostly the rugby and so forth. But there's also Springbok tennis as well. But I have my academy here, small academy here in Palm Beach Gardens, and we are in Jupiter as well, and in Palm Beach Gardens. So we have two facilities that we have kids playing and training with us, and we are looking to expand and do something really wonderful in the next few years, and finally have my own place that I can do things. And stay tuned, because there's a lot of things happening very well for us in Florida, on the East Coast as well as the West Coast. So I'm very excited about that.
Right. So my question about the Springbok was, is a gazelle, is an antelope or gazelle?
Yeah, it's an antelope. It's an antelope in South Africa that is in Southern Africa, but it's a beautiful antelope, and it's got a very unique characteristics, like when it shows off or it's just jumping around, it can jump incredibly high standing still. It can go 14 feet up in the air. And it's called pronking. And if a Springbok pronks, it's like it's showing off. And it's one of the fastest, most agile antelope in the world.
Great. That's a good point. Now, I know you have an academy. You're busy promoting young player. If a young person come to you today and say, "Hey, Johan, I would like you to take me on a tour and be my mentor," would you do it? If you have to do it, how would you go about it?
Well, first of all, let me just say the philosophy of taking a young player on a tour is a very, very, how would I say, a very involved process. What I found that is difficult for youngsters is because the parents, 95% of the time, the parents are not educated enough to make decisions based on what is needed. And it's part science, it is part art to be a good coach and to be a good mentor. This is not these kids are not interchangeable parts, and people, as much as they want to do that in tennis, if you look at the history of the sport and all of these top players, how they started, how humble they were, and some were not humble, but most of them were. And where did they come from, and why did they succeed? And to me, as the overriding factor always has been supportive parents, but not overbearing. And then there's also the fact that that the kids themselves, like the Nadals of the world, stay humble, and they almost like still surprised that they do so well. And I don't think there's anybody better in the world than Nadal in terms of how he approaches every match, every point. It's almost like he's still trying to become a better player, and that's what makes it so unique. But the whole process of having a junior that is 18, 19 years old and showing tremendous progress and wants to go on the tour is a very different animal today than it was 30 years ago. So it is much more expensive now. There are a lot more competition. There's a lot more really good players out there. And it takes a lot longer to get on the tour, which makes it even much more expensive. So it's a very expensive endeavor to get a good player on the tour. I'm happy to help and do that, but frankly, that's definitely where people like myself, and you see who all the top coaches are in the world now. All those guys like myself and Lendl and McEnroe have been coaching. We are sort of a unique breed because we came through an era of tennis where there were just tremendous changes. I mean, we went from the string technology has improved tremendously. We used to play mostly with gut. Now everything in between. It's synthetic and this and that, polyester, that and this. And then you have all these different rackets. I mean, we played with metal, we played with wood to start with as kids, and then we transformed to metal and all sorts of composites, and then we ended up with graphite. So we have a very rich heritage in terms of knowledge of the sport and how it's transferred. And so maybe we can see a little bit quicker tactics and stuff because we were so diverse in how we had to use different technologies.
Right. Good point. New technology, titanium, graphite has changed the game. So
yep.
is on that subject, we're not going to see a player like Rafter or Edberg anymore.
I think that those types of players, I think, are going to be fewer and fewer on the tour, as we can see that the serve and volley game is impacted because of the string, because the guys hit the ball so hard now with these rackets, and the ball is dipping, so they can hit the ball 2 feet, 3 feet over the net, but it's dipping onto the feet of the volleyer. Now, I don't care how fast and how good your hands are. You cannot do that as a tactic, as like a John McEnroe used to play, or a Rafter, or a Pat Cash, or even myself, for that matter. I just think that pure serve and volleyer is just so impacted by the way that the ball is struck now, that the serve and volleyer is more of an opportunistic and maybe a surprise tactic rather than an actual tactic that is from start to finish. That's what you're going to use. And it is fun to see that Federer can do it so well sometimes, and there's a couple other guys that have good volleys, but Federer is probably the most visible in terms of the hands and all that at the net. But he doesn't serve and volley all the time, and I mean he has to play from the baseline a lot, and so now and then he does a serve and volley, but it's more of a surprise tactic, and it works. But the pure serve and volleyer has been affected by the way that the ball is hit.
Right. I mean, this you as a guest is so interesting to have you at CQ Radio. We have 25 minutes. We're almost finished. We may have to call you to come back again. But before we go, I have one more question for you. What is your intake on bringing the progressive balls in the game, such as orange ball, red ball, and green dot? What do you think of that?
My kids, our own kids are going through that now. My daughter just won her first green dot tournament this past weekend, and my son is starting to play. He's 7. He's starting to play orange ball tournaments because he doesn't want to see his sister getting all the trophies. So he's starting to play orange. Look, I mean, like I said, I go with the flow right now. I mean, do I agree with everything that's happening in the world of tennis? No. But, for little kids, I mean, my little guy is inheriting his sister. She's 2 years older than him. He's inheriting all of her rackets, her used rackets. So then he goes from a 25-inch to a 26-inch, and he's hitting the ground because he's short. And, you have to have these balls, and you have to have these progression things. I don't think it's a bad thing. But I also think that there's sometimes people play with these kids in green dot too long. Maybe there's some really good kids that can transfer very quickly. But, these are the rules, and this is what's happening with the USTA. And, I'm going to go through it with my kids. All I know is that, we work with our kids for now, but eventually I want somebody else to also input that if they so desire to play and they want to continue and they want to go to college with their tennis, or who the heck knows what happens past that. But, I think the progression stuff is okay. I think it's fine.
Okay. So now if we have to give somebody who is somewhere in Australia or South America wants to get a hold of a Johan KRIEK, how would they go about it?
Yeah, they can go to our website, www.johankriektennis.com. So it's JOHANKRIEK tennis.com. And they can also call our number, and they can just 561-814-3655. That's our number, 561-814-3655, and find out what we do. And I still love the sport. For me, it's not about finding the next Serena or the next Federer or Nadal. For me, it's about making the tennis fun for the kids and really educating everybody, because I've been through the drill with so many ways with the parents, and I see so many train wrecks out there. And but we try to have fun with the kids. If the kids are having fun, they'll stay in the game. If they don't and they feel too much pressure, many of them will fall by the wayside.
So, CQ Radio, today our guest, my great friends and great Australian Open 2 times winner, Johan KRIEK. Johan, say my best to your wife, Daga, and your 2 kids. And I'm looking forward to catch up with you again. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely. Anytime, CQ. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.